In the bustling town of Calabar, nestled along the banks of the great river, lived a young man named Ikechukwu. He was the only child of his parents, who adored him dearly. Ikechukwu was not only handsome, but also kind-hearted, a rarity in a world where survival often hardens souls. His family, however, was poor, and their meager earnings barely sustained them. Each morning, Ikechukwu would wake early, take his empty bag, and head to the market. There, he would scavenge for leftover food after the traders had packed up. Though his life was humble, Ikechukwu carried himself with dignity, earning the respect of those who knew him. One fateful day, as Ikechukwu bent to pick up scattered grains, a shadow fell over him. He looked up to see a finely dressed woman staring at him intently. She was the servant of Queen Nneka, one of King Offiong's many wives. The servant had been tasked with finding a young, handsome man for her mistress, and in Ikechukwu, she saw the perfect candidate. Unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon, Ikechukwu listened as the servant relayed the queen's invitation. Fear gripped his heart, for he knew the dangers of meddling with the king's affairs. Yet, curiosity and desperation nudged him toward a decision that would change his life forever. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ikechukwu found himself standing nervously outside the queen's side door. His heart pounded as he knocked softly, half hoping no one would answer. But the door creaked open, revealing Queen Nneka in all her regal splendor. Her beauty was breathtaking, and her eyes sparkled with mischief and desire. She welcomed Ikechukwu warmly, her voice a soothing balm to his frayed nerves. The queen's chambers were lavish, a stark contrast to the humble abode Ikechukwu called home. That night, Queen Nneka confessed her loneliness and disdain for her aging husband. She longed for companionship, for someone who could make her feel alive. Ikechukwu, though initially hesitant, found himself drawn to her charm and vulnerability. The queen's servant brought food and clean clothes, and for the first time in years, Ikechukwu felt a sense of belonging. But as the night wore on, a nagging voice in his mind reminded him of the perilous path he had chosen. Little did he know, the king's spies were already watching, and his fate was sealed. After 2 weeks in the queen's hidden embrace, Ikechukwu grew restless. He missed his mother and the simple life he had left behind. Queen Nneka, reluctant to let him go, finally agreed, but insisted he return soon. She sent him home with a grand procession of carriers bearing gifts, yams, cloth, and even slaves. Ikechukwu's mother was overjoyed to see her son return in such fine attire, but her joy quickly turned to fear when she learned of his involvement with the queen. "My son," she whispered, her voice trembling, "you have walked into a lion's den. The king's wrath is swift and merciless." Ikechukwu tried to reassure her, but her words lingered in his mind like a dark cloud. For a month, he worked on the family farm, trying to forget the queen's allure. But the heart is a stubborn thing, and soon, Ikechukwu found himself drawn back to the palace, unaware that his mother's fears were about to come true. The king's spies had not been idle. They reported Ikechukwu's visits to the queen, and the king's anger burned like a wildfire. He summoned his council and ordered Ikechukwu's arrest. That night, as Ikechukwu and the queen shared a stolen moment, the king's guards burst in, dragging Ikechukwu away. The queen's pleas fell on deaf ears as the king declared a public trial. In the palaver house, the air was thick with tension. Ikechukwu stood before the king, his fate hanging in the balance. The king's voice boomed as he pronounced the sentence, "Death by the hands of the Egbos," the king's enforcers. Ikechukwu's heart sank, but he held his head high, determined to face his fate with dignity. The Egbos led Ikechukwu into the dense forest, their machetes glinting in the moonlight. They tied him to a tree, their faces impassive as they carried out the king's orders. With a swift, merciless stroke, they severed his lower jaw, leaving him in agonizing pain. The Egbos then returned to the palace, presenting the gruesome trophy to the king. When Queen Nneka learned of Ikechukwu's fate, her heart shattered. She wept openly, her grief enraging the king further. In his fury, he ordered the same punishment for her and her servant. The Egbos returned to the forest, where they carried out the king's brutal decree. The queen's cries echoed through the trees, a haunting reminder of the cost of forbidden love. The king's vengeance did not end with the deaths of Ikechukwu and the queen. He decreed that no member of Ikechukwu's family could ever enter the market again, a punishment meant to erase their legacy. But the people of Calabar remembered. They whispered stories of Ikechukwu's kindness and the queen's tragic love, passing them down through generations. To this day, vultures and dogs roam the market, scavenging for scraps. The people say they are the only ones exempt from the king's law, a reminder of the tale that shaped their history. And though the market bustles with life, the shadows of the past linger, a testament to the enduring power of love, betrayal, and the consequences of defying the natural order. After the king's decree, the market of Calabar became a place of unease. The people whispered that the spirits of Ikechukwu and Queen Nneka haunted the grounds, their restless souls unable to find peace. Traders began to notice strange occurrences. Food would spoil overnight, and coins would vanish from their stalls. The elders of the town gathered to discuss the matter, fearing that the king's harsh punishment had angered the ancestors. One elder, a wise woman named Adiaha, suggested that a cleansing ritual be performed to appease the spirits. She argued that the king's law had disrupted the natural balance, and only through atonement could harmony be restored. The king, however, dismissed her pleas, believing his authority was absolute. But as the market's misfortunes continued, even his most loyal subjects began to question his judgment. The curse of the market became a symbol of the king's tyranny, and the people's discontent grew. The younger generation of Calabar, inspired by the tragic tale of Ikechukwu and Queen Nneka, began to challenge the king's oppressive rule. Led by a fiery young woman named Ekwueme, they organized secret meetings to discuss how to restore justice to their town. Ekwueme, whose own family had suffered under the king's laws, was determined to see change. One night, under the cover of darkness, the youth gathered at the edge of the forest where Ikechukwu and Nneka had met their end. They lit a bonfire and vowed to honor the lovers' memory by fighting for a better future. Ekwueme declared, "We will not let their deaths be in vain. The king's cruelty must end, and the market must be free once more." Their rebellion was small at first, but their courage spread like wildfire, igniting hope in the hearts of the oppressed. As the youth's rebellion gained momentum, the king grew increasingly paranoid. He ordered his guards to patrol the town day and night, arresting anyone suspected of dissent. But his harsh measures only fueled the people's anger. Even the Egbos, once loyal to the king, began to question his leadership. One fateful day, during a public gathering, Ekwueme stood before the crowd and boldly accused the king of tyranny. Her words resonated with the people, and a wave of unrest swept through Calabar. The king, desperate to maintain control, ordered her arrest, but the Egbos refused. Instead, they turned on the king, declaring that his reign had brought nothing but suffering. The king was overthrown, and the people rejoiced, believing that a new era of justice and freedom had begun. With the king's downfall, the people of Calabar worked together to heal their town. Adyaha, the wise elder, led the cleansing ritual at the market, offering prayers and sacrifices to the spirits of Ikechukwu and Queen Nneka. The curse was lifted, and the market once again thrived with life and laughter. Ekwueme, now a respected leader, ensured that the king's unjust laws were abolished. She also established a council of elders and youth to govern the town, ensuring that no single person would ever hold absolute power again. The story of Ikechukwu and Nneka became a lesson for future generations, a reminder of the importance of love, justice, and the courage to stand against oppression. As the years passed, the people of Calabar honored the memory of the ill-fated lovers by planting a grove of trees near the market. The trees, tall and strong, symbolized resilience and hope, a testament to the enduring spirit of a community that had risen from tragedy to create a brighter future.